We have one message to America, one message to North Carolina, and that is stop deportation. Stop playing games with our immigrant brothers and sisters and our fellow human beings. The moral scriptures are clear. When the alien, Leviticus 19 says, when the alien resides with you in your land, you shall not oppress a stranger. You shall not oppress an immigrant. The New Testament is clear in Matthew 25. It says, I was a stranger and you welcomed me. And that is a message to nations. I was a stranger and you welcomed me. So to not welcome the stranger, to not have just and fair immigration laws, is to offend the very heart of God. Politicians need to stop playing games with the lives of our brothers and sisters of the human family, God's creation. Whether it is Donald Trump signing an executive order against DACA students, 800,000 of them, who have been here, who have worked here, who have gone to school here, who have served the military, and last week died here trying to help people who were in the middle of flood and hurricane. But it's not just Donald Trump. Jeff Sessions, attorney, has used Hispanic people as a dog whistle to build his entire career, and to now use the power and the office of the Attorney General's office to undermine the human rights of our immigrant brothers and sisters and students is sinful, it is mean-spirited, and it is contrary to everything we believe in our deepest moral core. But I have to say this morning for the media, it is not just Republicans. When Democrats had full control in Washington, D.C., they too did not pass full and just immigration reform. That's right. They did not do that, and that is wrong. In fact, not only in D.C., this year, even Governor Cooper signed a law by the extremists of our state that was passed that stripped workers' rights for farm workers, mostly Latino. We have to stop playing games with people's lives, period. It is the most sinful thing for a nation of immigrants to continue to do this to our immigrant brothers and sisters. It is wrong at its core. And to even set up this phony notion of meritocracy, to say, well, we'll accept these immigrants who meet certain standards. If that standard had been in place when Trump's ancestors tried to come here and Sessions' ancestors tried to come here, they would have never made that. And that particularly offends us as African Americans, because we remember how the slave traders would go to Africa and pick out the slaves with the so-called best abilities and then welcome them into the country, and how they tried to divide the slaves. Treating our Latino friends and other mostly brown and black-skinned undocumented immigrants like pawns in a political game is sinful. It's immoral, and America has to do better. Now, I want to note something about this DACA piece, because it's 3 or 4 things, and then have my sister speak, that's particularly ugly of what Trump and Sessions are doing. And even though this morning they may have tweeted out something and had a conversation with Pelosi, what that is, even in that, is a lot of cynicalness, because if that's the case, then why did you sign it in the first place?
That's right.
And why did you use reversing it as a campaign tool? Why did you come down the stairways calling our Latino brothers and sisters, particularly Mexican rapists and criminals? We cannot, just because of one tweet, dismiss all the trauma and the terrible things that are being done to our immigrant brothers and sisters, and it is wrong. Now on the DACA, when Trump and Sessions say they love Hispanic students and DACA recipients while nullifying DACA, it sounds like Jim Crow era white supremacists who said they loved all people, but they had to follow the segregationist law. God. I did not come to mince any words this morning, because we're playing with people's lives.
That's right.
When you pit young people against the so-called American worker and attempt to label them as the cause of some people's economic woes, this too is a part of the white nationalist, white supremacist agenda. Check out the policy agenda of white nationalists and white supremacists. And often what they say is that Latinos and immigrants are the cause of the economic woes. It's an old racist game that has been played in America too many times, too long, and we have to call it out when we see it today. This action is immoral and is inhumane. But also, the fact of the matter is that Trump's decision to rescind the status undermines America's moral claim, and it will actually negatively impact our economy and will negatively impact the very workers that he claims that he cares something about. Also, you need to know that attacking immigrants, particularly our Latino immigrants, is a categorical part of the agenda of white supremacists. Now, I'm not just talking about the DACA piece, just the attacking of immigrants. If you look at the speeches of people like Richard Spencer and what they have said, the white nationalists, about immigrants, and he said in his own words that what drew them to the Trump administration was first their attack on our immigrant brothers and sisters. One final piece. Trump is not evolving on DACA. And we are very, and part of the blame is not just with Trump, for a lot of it. It is the members of his own party, our own two senators, our people like Mark Meadows and the Freedom Caucus and others who heard all of this during the campaign and turned their attention another way and still endorsed and still supported. You cannot put it just on Donald Trump. But here is one final thing we want the media to hear. Many of us believe that Trump and Sessions are playing a more sinister game with the Dreamer issue. Listen at the language. He says he wants his base to love the almost million Dreamer kids who have been vetted and contributed billions to the economy. Listen at that. Inside of that, he's also subtly suggesting that it's all right to believe that the other millions and millions of non-white immigrants we see every day are rapists, criminals, and non-vetted. In short, what he's doing is trying to siphon off the cream at the top of the milk.
That's right. That's right.
And leave the rest of the majority of non-white immigrants as targets for Jeffrey Sessions. And we have to understand that in this moment.
That's right.
That is why we are not just saying in the NAACP and as moral leaders, stop what you're doing to DACA. Stop deportations, period.
Period.
Stop the attacks on our immigrant brothers and sisters, period. And pass now. And stop saying it's so hard. We've had years to do it.
That's right.
We've had over 200 years as a country. It's not that it's so hard, it's that they're so brown.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's the issue.
Preach.
And governors and state's attorney general, every politician, Democrat and Republican, and every clergy person who believes in our deepest moral values should stand up publicly against a nation of immigrants continuing to play games, violent games, hurtful games, harmful games, destructive games with fellow citizens of the human family. And to say nothing and to do nothing is in fact to be an accessory to this very cruel and inhumane policy action. And the silence that many of the president's party kept during the campaign is to blame for him being emboldened now. And we say to Democrats and Republicans, it's time for this to stop. I close where I open and turn over to my dear sister.
Reverend, before you do that, before you take the mic off, can we just ask you about Josh Stein's attempts to sue?
We applaud the attorney generals to sue on DACA, but we say to all these attorney generals, again, that's fine. But what we need every attorney general and every governor and every clergy to do is say stop deportations now and pass fair and just. We're not going to play the game. That's the problem. People keep trying to find what they deem the safest way. And Trump and Sessions are playing a very sinister game of divide and conquer. And we who are African Americans, particularly who come up through the system of slavery and segregation, understand this. You know, there was an attempt many times in American history to pit black educated people over against black people who worked as sharecroppers. See? There's this suggestion that somehow these folk merit. They merit being accepted. If you use that standard, most of Trump's ancestors and others probably wouldn't have never gotten in if that was the standard. And why is it all of a sudden that brown and black immigrants have to have some kind of merit, some extreme standard of merit? You ever hear that applied to European immigrants? Not in the way it's being done now. This is very ugly, very sinister. It is an attempt to play a game. You know, we love the dreamers because they've been vetted. But then that says, but the rest of the folk are target. We are creating physical and psychological trauma every day. This nation continues not to have fair immigration and just immigration policy.
That's right.
And it's wrong. The Bible simply says in Zechariah 7, do not oppress the stranger. America is in violation of something much deeper than its own constitution, even though I believe that any act that does not have fair discrimination policy is a violation of the first principle of the Constitution, that is to establish justice. There is no justice when you do not have fair and just immigration policy. There is no justice to keep 11 million people in limbo. There is no justice to continue to attack people because merely the skin of their color, and because if they become citizens, they will change the voting demographics of this country. There is no justice when you keep people in a permanent state of being undocumented, and then you blame them for it. And then you use their labor, and that labor builds the economy. And then after their labor has built the economy, you want to send them back. There is no justice.
None. No justice.
So we're in violation of the first principle of the Constitution, but more importantly, and I want folk to hear this, it is sad, sick, and cynical to keep talking about people as though they are not human beings.
That's right, that's right, that's right.
I'm so sick of this language, alien. People who've been documented by God, who've been created by God. And you got people in a nation so arrogant, who come from immigrants themselves, that less than 100 years ago, their grandparents were facing the same kind of trauma, but the only difference was the color of their skin. And once they got in, they could meld into the rest of society. We've seen a sick, mean-spirited using of people. And that's why I'm not just saying this about Republicans. Democrats, when you had power, when you had the presidency and the Congress, you didn't do it right either. So now we need a moral response.
That's right.
Everybody, regardless of party, regardless of color, needs to come together and do right by our immigrant brothers and sisters. And if we do not, we're in violation of something more than the U.S. Constitution. We are in violation of the very moral law of God. Where's she at? I'm sorry, I'm reaching for the wrong person, I'm sorry.
It's okay. Good morning, I'm Pilar Rocha Goldberg with El Centro Hispano. This last week has been tough for many of our community members and their families. With the decision to end DACA, the President has forced Congress to act and sent many of our community members into a state of worry and even further uncertainty. Excuse me, this is a decision that does not only affect the 800,000 dreamers currently holding a work permit, going to school, holding jobs, owning homes and businesses, serving in our military, being first responders, and being productive and engaged members of society. This decision affects their families, friends, neighbors, schools, businesses, employers, and employees, in more other words, their community. It is our vision to see the Hispanic Latino community strengthened in North Carolina, and we know dreamers and their families play a key role in the survival of not just this state, but this country.
That's right.
There is no way to deny that. Now is the time Congress must act. We have to stand together and ensure we advocate for our community members. Liberty, equality, and freedom are the principles and rights that gave birth to this country. So our representatives and elected officials must understand that our immigrant communities deserve the same rights as anyone who calls this United States home. This is their home. There must be a comprehensive immigration reform.
That's right. That's
Where
right.
our immigrant communities are given an opportunity to become full members of society rather than this continued series of attacks against them. We must protect all of our immigrant community members, and this fight is far from over. DACA was the band-aid of the fatal wound that is our immigrant system. We must stand together and heal that wound. We at El Centro Hispano work to strengthen the community, build bridges, and advocate for equity and inclusion for Hispanics, and we will continue to fight for all of our immigrant communities.
Say your name again. Say your name again.
Pilar Rocha Goldberg,
Thank you. With who?
El Centro Hispano.
Thank you so much. I want to ask Dr. Spearman if he has any comments, if he wanted to say anything, a statement. Anna Blackburn, who's our Latino, and Al McShirley is here. I don't know if he has anything. Is there anyone else you can take in today? Iana?
Much like Bishop Barber has already stated this morning, this is no time to mince words, but it's a time to be very, very direct in our positions and our stance against some of the heinous acts that are being committed by this presidential administration. The bottom line is that the trajectory being set forth by this administration is a hate-filled and very, very anti-human trajectory. And we have to, at all points, confront and challenge everything that is being done at the hands of number 45. I'm just sorry, I just have not gotten to the point that I'm able to call the being by name. I just cannot. He's number 45 to me. And some of the things that are being done in this racial climate are hideous. They are terrible. And the North Carolina Council of Churches stands with the North Carolina NAACP and others to declare that we will do all that we can within our power to fight the powers that be. Come what may, we know that this is a nation of immigrants, and we are going to do all that we can to support them at every turn. Thank you so much.
Reverend Dr. T. Anthony Spearman is also president of the North Carolina Council of Churches and third vice president of the North Carolina NAACP.
Hey everyone, my name is Ileana Santillan and I'm the community organizer at El Pueblo. The United States has been my home for the past 22 years. My mom came to this country when I was 12 years old with a suitcase full of dreams and hopes and $50 to her name. Because of the sacrifices that my mother made, I am able to stand here before you. I was an educator for 10 years, and right now as an organizer, I'm giving back to my community. And I'd like to say that we are here to stay. We're not going anywhere. North Carolina is home to thousands of immigrants. We hear the 800,000 nationwide. There are 30,000 DACA recipients in this state right now. Some of them are students, some of them are parents, and they all contribute not just to the economy, but to the betterment of this wonderful state we all call home. On Tuesday, Trump decided to cast a shadow amongst her people by making the decision to terminate DACA and jeopardize the hopes and aspirations of thousands of young people who have settled here and established roots in North Carolina. We know the statistics. We know that they contribute millions of dollars to the state, but they're a driving force to our economy. And that is not all that they do. They contribute to the society. These are dreamers that make our state great. Great. I am tired of hearing that, parents committed a crime when they brought their children to this country. My mom committed that crime, and because of her, I am sitting here today. We need to stop deportations, and we need to have a Clean Dream Act. Currently, there are 4 pieces of legislation at the Congress level, and a lot of them have something to do with securing the borders, enforcing the wall, and giving funding to the wall. We want a Clean Dream Act with a pathway to citizenship, not only for the students, but also for the parents.
That's right.
We will fight tooth and nail for all of the families and all of the children that are working so hard to make this wonderful state we call home. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Anna Laraza, Blackburn. I am the state's Latino liaison for the North Carolina NAACP. Citizens of this country do not get a pass on the immigration issue. You just don't.
Just don't.
You don't get a pass because your past is an immigrant pass.
Right?
And I say to you as a Latina empowered woman, that if you bet against the immigrant community, you, citizens of this country, are betting against your best interests.
Right.
For the simple fact that your American dreams cannot be fulfilled without the immigrant community.
That's right.
So it is time for not just the Latino community to stand. It is time for not just the grassroots to stand. It is time for the citizens of this country to stand. Because they say they love the democracy that they live in, then now it's time to take that stand. We thank El Centro Hispano for standing with us here today. We stand as a community in solidarity, and we tell you we are not going away. This is our country.
That's right.
Professor Smith, who's also our political action chair, may have a statement, then we'll take questions.
I just want to reiterate the point that's been made so eloquently by Dr. Spearman and Anna and others, is that this is a collective effort to reclaim the true spirit of what our democracy is all about, which is about immigration. It's about coming to this place, this place called the United States, which is much more than just some little geographic region stuck between a couple of oceans. There's a spirit about the United States and its inclusion and its inclusiveness, which makes people want to come from all over the world. And it's this issue has been politicized for far too long. The Democrats, as it's been stated earlier, had opportunities to make this right, and they chose not to.
Right.
So this is really time for us as a people, as a collective, to come together and really slam this effort by the Republicans, and to not give the Democrats a pass.
That's
We really can't give anybody a pass. Nobody gets a pass. And so the North Carolina NAACP is standing as strong as it's ever stood.
Yes, sir.
In support of our immigrant brothers and sisters, and we're not moving.
Not moving.
So forward together.
That's right. Stand back.
We'll take questions. I do want to ask the media that are here and the media that are listening by live stream, please do this one thing, because I know somebody's going to call me on it, but I try to do my homework. Go to the white nationalist, white supremacist websites and review their political positions on immigration. And then look at the president, attorney general, and other elected officials and where they stand on these issues. You will find an eerie similarity. We cannot just talk about white supremacy and white nationalism when somebody drives a car through a crowd in Charlottesville. We have to then. But to say that is white supremacy and not deal with the policy agenda.
That's right.
Review the speeches of people like Spencer and others. And then look at the speeches of Sessions in the past as a senator. Look at what he did politically. And you will see a lineup White supremacy, not white people, because there's so many white people and black people that are against this, but that group, that policy agenda of white supremacy, white nationalism, is at work in all of this, even to pit the dreamers against the rest of immigrants. And I would say something at this place I said in Detroit. You even can have black people who support white supremacy.
That's right.
Because if they support the policies,
Yep.
and the politicians that embrace the policies and vote on the policies, you are an accessory. You are an accomplice to injustice. And we have to call it out, no matter who it is. There is a dream. Dr. King said it's as old, it's older, I want to say, than the American dream. It is the dream that God dreamt when he created humanity.
That's right.
It is the dream that Jesus dreamed when he was headed to the cross, that we all might be one. It is the dream that the Apostle Paul talked about. In Christ, there's no male nor female, nor bond nor free. It is the dream that the slaves died for, and every revolutionary person who stood for justice has fought for. And this nation stands under judgment, and every politician stands under judgment of a higher force and a higher power, as long as we keep doing this to human beings. We violate the call for one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And if you're out there, not a media person, but a citizen, it's time that we all stand up and say, stop deportation now. Stop attacking our immigrant brothers and sisters now. Stop pitting dreamers against their future and their hopes now. We pray for those who are in the middle of the hurricanes. We cry for those poor people who can't evacuate, who will just have to take it. The hurricanes of wind and water will pass, but the hurricanes of social and political disorder will not pass until America does right by all of her immigrants and all of those who are God's children. And any questions from the media? Thank you very much. God bless you. Thank you.